Good evening. As young members of the bar, we've seen Mr. Hariharan in court and are familiar with his work in the areas of criminal, public, and administrative law. We've read about his contribution in matters like Tehelka, the 2G spectrum case, the coal allocation matters. However, little is known about his passionate involvement in preserving the forest cover in the city in his capacity as amicus curiae in multiple forest matters. Even so, Mr. Hariharan is largely known for his standing at the bar. We were curious, therefore, about why Mr. Hariharan had decided to enter the DHCBA electoral process. As somebody who is new to the DHCBA electoral fray, we decided to sit down and speak with Sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Sir, we wish to ask, it has been a long month of campaigning and perhaps even longer for a lot of others. How do you feel after spending so much time on the campaign trail? What are your experiences that you would like to share?
It was a great experience in the sense that it was a first time experience doing something like this, which I am not used to doing. Till now, it has only been books, cases, appearances in court, arguments there. But this was a completely different eye-opener kind of an experience in the sense that I got to meet so many youngsters down the line. I got to interact with seniors down the line. I got to interact with so many people, which I never imagined that there would be a connect of this sort, which I could have established anyway else than this.
So, sir, during this election process, you say that you weren't involved and you were, in a sense, passive to the electoral process at the Delhi High Court Bar Association. What prompted you to fight now?
My friend, I was passive as any other voter would in an election scenario in the Delhi High Court or in the other bars. We generally as lawyers tend to feel that, politics has to be left to politicians and practice to practitioners. Now this dichotomy, I realized, was the reason why the same faces get repeated again and again, and essentially it is not the active practitioner who comes forward. Now, until and unless we as active practitioners do not come forward and participate in the system and bring our ideas onto the table, in that kind of a scenario, what will happen is that the institution will be bereft of new ideas. The institution will be bereft of new faces. The institution will be, in fact, bereft of participation. It will cease to be a participative democracy.
Sir, you mentioned that there seems to be a slow march towards extinction for the democratic process at the DHCBA. Could you be a little more specific for perhaps what you see as symptoms of the same?
See, the first symptom that I see is that apart from the DHCBA elections, we also have what are known as the Bar Council elections. We find that more or less the same kind of faces get repeated starting from the district court bar. They also seem to be graduating, the politicians seem to be graduating from the district court bar, then moving on to the Delhi High Court bar, and then thereon going on to the Bar Council elections as such. And each of these, in fact, more or less I found that the terms also, for instance, initially even the Delhi High Court bar elections we saw much earlier. At that point of time, the Delhi High Court bar elections used to be a yearly affair. From a yearly affair, somewhere down the line, something happened and it became a 2-yearly affair. And a 2-yearly affair now seems to be going into a leap year affair. So if this goes on in this fashion, then instead of a democratic situation, we have a situation where we are riddled with a kind of an oligarchy which continues in perpetuity.
So, sir, this is with regard to the holding of timely elections that you see as one symptom that seems to be hamstringing the development of democracy. Are there any other signs that you see that point to this stagnancy?
Now, if you see, for instance, there are various issues in terms of stagnancy. In the sense, when you look into the rule book, to begin with, there is a rule book which is very, very basic, which probably was drafted long ago. I don't remember the exact year, but I can say that it was a decade or so, 1980 or 79, if my memory serves me right. Post that, we have been existing on guidelines. So every time a new incumbent comes, there is a new guideline which comes in, and it is on the basis of the guideline that it is cited as a custom. So I remember when it was a yearly process, then the guidelines came and it became a 2-yearly process. On this pretext that 2 years would essentially be sufficient for a person, a new incumbent, one, to ensconce himself, understand the problems which are being faced by the bar, and then start acting upon it. But it came with a rider then, if I remember correctly, it came with a rider saying this, that you cannot seek a second term if you have completed 2 years in continuum. Now that too seems to be flouted now. Because here we have an entire executive more or less which seems to be asking for a repeat after having spent nearly 3.5 years on the seat. So if this goes on like this, and if it is going to be a leap yearly process, what to talk of any democratic process at all?
So sir, could the argument not be made that...
And I recollect you said that what are the signs? Now the signs that you see, that in those 4 years or 3.5 years that we witnessed, we did not see any general body meeting taking place. If you go back to the rules say that in a year at least 2 general body meetings have to be held, or 1 general body meeting has to be held. If it is a general body meeting, a 7-day notice is to be given. It used to be a practice earlier that the general body meeting used to be held on a yearly basis. Accounts used to be presented. In a democracy, what is more important is not just getting elected. What is important is being responsible to the electorate, being answerable to the electorate. So when you present yourself in a general body meeting for an appraisal, you present yourself to the general body saying this, that now here we are before you, this is what we have done, we were accountable to you, we have discharged our duties in relation to what was entrusted to us. Now that process seems to be completely divorced and missing as such from our system. So these are some of those features which essentially impelled me over a period of time and got me thinking. And why is this happening? It is because invariably, as I said initially, a dichotomy seems to have come in, that those who practice will be unable to politic. Now this is something which I cannot understand, because ultimately a politician or a practitioner, as far as the practice of law is concerned, I don't see any difference between the two. Being a first-time lawyer, having travelled these 35 years in the profession, I too have had my set of problems. The problems remain. Probably the nature of the problems have changed. With the advance of technology and with the advent of technology, we were less technically savvy then, but our problems also were in accordance with our times. So we need to change according with times the solutions as well.
So sir, if there was any message that you would like to give to voters who will be coming on the 28th of September, if you had anything to say to them, not specifically with regard to your agenda, but what they would be trying to exercise by way of their franchise.
My friend, to begin with, I have not come with any agenda. What I have come for is to try and effect a change. There is no personal agenda here. Personal agendas, probably because when we started in the beginning, we said that what is ailing our democracy out here? What is ailing our democracy is that people, in a way, have not been considering the Bar Association to be a welfare association, meant for the welfare of its members. To augur our profession, to augur our practice, or to do well for yourself, you have the courts. So as far as the courts are concerned, they give us more than an ample opportunity to exhibit all that. But here what we need is a sense of welfare. Measures which will help the bar, help the youngsters in the bar. Small issues, for instance, internet connectivity. If you talk in terms of internet connectivity, this was something which could have been very easily resolved. Internet connectivity, in fact, saw its pinnacle during the time when the COVID situation was on. All courts shifted to the E-mode. We had E-courts functioning all over. But at that point of time, the internet connectivity in our homes was reasonably good. Once in a while we would disappear, but our voice could be heard. But when we come to court, you visit any corner of the High Court, both the voice as well as the face, both disappears. Now, this was a situation which could have been very easily solved. Because if I go back, Delhi University, for example, has got 5 lakh students. Though we say that our bar has grown to such an extent, our bar still has only 24,000 people. If Delhi University could cater to 5 lakh people and to probably 50 acres of space and still have connectivity, we with 5 acres of space and 24,000 people are not able to manage that kind of connectivity. It really baffles me. And this connectivity issue, interestingly, we do not find when we go to the Supreme Court. They seem to have found some solution. So this is something which could have been easily addressed. And this was affecting everybody. And it was a kind of a niggle. It was not something which was, not attainable in that sense. And that to be now promised as something which will be looked into and what will be done as an election campaign, I find it, somewhat strange. That these are issues which are being raised. Now, for instance, the other aspect is in relation to infrastructure. Now, infrastructure, promises made in relation to infrastructure, we have to bear in mind, infrastructural changes in the High Court can be done only when there is confabulation and cooperation of the High Court itself. So we will need to confabulate with the powers that be. We will need to talk to them and explain to them that this is the situation. There is lack of space, paucity of space, the canteens are completely crowded. To the extent that I remember there was a notice which said that it turns out because there is no space for juniors or there are no space for the regular members. So definitely there is a paucity of space. We need to address that. But these infrastructural issues have to be discussed, put up before the general body. Every major decision, I feel, if you ask me, needs consensus. Major decisions, we should call for general body meetings, arrive at a consensus, and then with the consent of everybody, try and effect a change.
So, sir, as a parting message that you would want to give to your voters who show up on the 28th, what would you like to say?
As a parting message, my friend, all I would like to say is that answer your conscience. What I am seeking is a conscience vote. There are 5 seconds when you get inside which you will get with the ballot, yourself and your conscience. Please answer your conscience. Answer a question as to who would be the person who would work in relation to the welfare of the bar. I am not saying that you vote for Hariharan. If you find that there is somebody else who satisfies that criteria, please go ahead. But do consider me. This is one aspect. And before I leave, I wish to leave with a small quote which I had read somewhere, which spoke about this, that politicians all over the world are the same. They will promise to build bridges where no rivers exist. Fortunately, I am not a politician. I am one amongst you.